You know that feeling right when you're trying to describe something amazing? Maybe the way the sun hits the water, or just someone who walks into a room and lights it up.
Yeah, and the usual words like bright or shiny or glowing,
Right.
they just fall flat. They don't capture it.
Exactly. They feel, I don't know, ordinary. You find yourself searching for that one word, that perfect adjective that really nails the dazzle, the brilliance of it all.
Finding that word is like unlocking a new level of description, isn't it? It's
Effulgent.
effulgent. It even sounds bright.
It does, doesn't it? So our mission today is to really unpack this word based on what all these sources are telling us. What does it really mean, beyond just bright? Where did it pop up from?
And how is it used? We found some kind of surprising examples, actually.
Yeah, and ultimately, why bother? Why does having a word like effulgent in your toolkit, why does that even matter?
Okay, so first things first. Let's get a handle on the basic definition. Looking across the sources, what's the core idea they all seem to agree on for effulgent?
Well, the absolute baseline, if you look at places like Daily Writing Tips, Systematic Motives, Words in a Sentence, it's definitely about light. You see things like brilliantly radiant, brightly shining, or just glowing, radiant.
Right. Shining, radiant, that's the starting point.
But straight away, the sources tell you it's not just any old brightness. This is important. Merriam-Webster, for instance, is pretty emphatic about this. They talk about the noun form effulgence, meaning radiant splendor and brilliance.
Radiant splendor. That's quite a step up from just bright.
Totally. Merriam-Webster actually says it's not the word for, and I quote, bog standard brightness. It's for shininess that dazzles, inspires, leaves you gobsmacked, that kind of level.
Wow, okay, so it's got impact.
Definitely. And Knowledge Lover echoes this, using phrases like emitting a brilliant light, really hitting that brilliant aspect.
So it signals a light that's, well, powerful, maybe beautiful, definitely intense. Not just there, but really making a statement. Cambridge Dictionary adds another layer, too.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
They say it can mean shining brightly, sure, but also suggests something looking very beautiful or full of goodness. There's almost a moral or aesthetic quality hinted at sometimes.
Interesting. Beautiful or full of goodness. And where does this word tend to show up? Is it an everyday kind of word?
Not really, according to sources like Systematic Motives in Cambridge. They point to it being used more often in, like, poetic or literary writing.
Okay. Makes sense. Systematic Motives specifically says it often evokes images of, the sun, the moon, stars, celestial stuff, and adds a touch of elegance or grandeur to how light is described.
Right. So takeaway number one seems to be, effulgent isn't just bright. It's a significant, powerful, often beautiful kind of radiance. It has splendor.
Precisely. It's got presence, as you said earlier.
It really feels like it, which, makes you wonder, where did a word with that kind of weight come from? What are its origins?
Okay, so the history takes us back, way back, to Latin. Both Merriam-Webster and Systematic Motives point to the Latin verb effulger.
Effulger. And what's the gist of that?
It means to shine forth or shine brightest. Let's look at some actual examples from the sources we gathered. How is it used out there in the wild?
Well, a very common use is for natural light sources, often with a sense of, awe or wonder. Words in a sentence gives us examples like the effulgent sun was shining brightly and using the light of the effulgent moon. Pretty straightforward.
And Merriam-Webster specifically calls out the exceptional effulgence of the harvest moon. That word exceptional, again, points to it not being just any moonlight.
Cambridge uses an effulgent canopy of stars in its image and mentions that historically people view the sun as the effulgent force, the big one.
So sun, moon, stars makes sense. But it's not just limited to the sky, right? The sources show it describing objects, too, things that shine intensely or beautifully.
Definitely. Words in a sentence has the bride, looked effulgent in her sparkling gown, and talks about photographers' effulgent lights, effulgent holiday lights, even an effulgent diamond ring, things that really sparkle and catch the eye.
Thesaurus.com adds more variety. Effulgent clouds, effulgent color harmonies in art, and even describes the musician Prince decked out in effulgent gold and purple stripes.
Okay. Prince definitely qualifies. Cambridge also mentions women wearing effulgent silks and buildings having effulgent pockets of gold and silver in their design. So richness, luxury, intense visual appeal.
It paints a really vivid picture, but what I found really interesting is how the sources show effulgent stretching beyond just physical things, describing people's qualities or even abstract ideas.
Yes. Merriam-Webster notes it being used for Elle Fanning's complexion reaching new levels of effulgence, or Meghan Markle's pregnancy glow becoming a full-on display of effulgence.
Right, like a personal radiance.
Yeah.
Jennifer Lopez's eyeshadow was apparently described as exuding effulgence.
And that knowledge lover source, the one with the beauty words, it does something quite striking. It defines effulgent as radiantly shining, emitting a brilliant light, and then gives the example. The sunrise is effulgent, but not as effulgent as you.
Whoa. Okay.
And it does this repeatedly with other words, too. It sets up this pattern, comparing a person's beauty or radiance directly to these powerful natural phenomena and saying the person outshines them.
It's a really bold use of the word, isn't it? Suggesting someone's presence is as dazzling as a sunrise. Wow.
Knowledge Lover also uses effulgence more abstractly, talking about the fashion designer Dries Van Noten's career. And Merriam-Webster picked up a critic describing something with unhinged, dangerous effulgence, suggesting a kind of fierce, almost overwhelming brilliance.
So it really covers a lot of ground. From the sun and moon, to diamonds and silk, to personal glow, even the intensity of a career. That's impressive, Rain.
It really is. Which leads us to probably the most unexpected place we found this word popping up. A connection that you might genuinely not predict for such a, well, literary-sounding word.
This is where digging into those niche sources like online forums really pays off sometimes.
We found effulgent being discussed in a Reddit forum for Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Buffy, seriously, get out.
Seriously. The character Spike, the vampire, platinum blonde, trench coat, used to be a human poet called William the Bloody. Apparently not a very good one initially.
Right, I remember that backstory. So how does effulgent fit in?
Well, someone on the forum just posted the word effulgent, and it kicked off this whole thread about where it actually appears in the show.
Where is it?
It turns out it's used by Drusilla, the kind of unhinged psychic vampire, right before she turns William into a vampire. She looks at him, this human poet, and says something like, something glowing and glistening, something effulgent.
No way. That's incredible. So she's sensing this quality in him, this radiant potential.
Exactly. It's not just how he looks. It's this inner effulgence that draws her, the thing she wants to capture and make immortal in a vampiric way. It's quite a powerful use, actually.
That really adds a layer. And didn't someone else on that forum add some historical context?
Yes, crucially. Another user pointed out that effulgent, while it might sound fancy to us now, was actually pretty standard poetic language back in the Victorian era.
Ah, of course. And Spike, or William, was from the late 19th century, so him using or being associated with that word makes perfect sense for his time.
Right, it wasn't necessarily him being pretentious, even if his poetry got laughed at back then. It was just the literary vocabulary of the time.
So the word itself wasn't the problem, maybe just the poetry around it initially.
Perhaps. The forum discussion touches on that, too. How that word, maybe part of the poetry he was mocked for as a human, carries a different kind of intensity when he, as Spike, recites his work later, filled with vampiric anger and experience.
Wow. It ties into his whole character arc, his literary side that pops up now and then, like when he quotes Shakespeare in his first Buffy appearance.
So yeah, from ancient Latin roots and dazzling suns, through Victorian poetry, landing right in a vampire's origin story on TV.
That journey tells you something, right? That's maybe our third insight. The word's meaning gets shaped by its history, by who's using it, and the whole context around it.
It really shows how words live and evolve, picking up different shades of meaning across time and even across fiction.
It does. It gives you a real sense of the biography of a word.
And circling back then, all this time spent on just one word, effulgent. Why does it matter? Why should you care about digging this deep? Well, think back to that daily writing tips source we looked at. They had this great introduction that basically said, people sometimes criticize using too many adjectives, but the real problem isn't the number, it's the quality. Using the same old tired words.
Like bright or nice or good.
Exactly. Those can just flatten your writing. They spoil a good sentence, as the source put it.
But they argue if you make the effort to find just the right word for the job, then your writing gets richer, more precise. They actually encourage writers to practice precision.
And effulgent is a fantastic example of that precision in action. It's not vaguely bright. As we've seen, it carries this specific weight of dazzling splendor, brilliant radiance, maybe even beauty or power.
It delivers that little jolt of specific meaning, that aha moment that weaker words just can't provide.
And choosing it is also about knowing your audience and context, right? Someone commented on that daily writing tips article saying, they love learning new words, but if they're writing for young kids, they might choose luminous instead of something less common like effulgent or salubrious.
Makes sense. It's about picking the right tool for the specific task. Effulgent is a powerful tool, perfect for when you need to convey that really intense, inspiring, radiant quality, whether it's literal light or something more metaphorical.
So let's recap our journey with effulgent. We've nailed down its meaning, that brilliant, radiant splendor, way beyond just ordinary brightness.
We traced it back to its Latin origins, meaning to shine forth.
Mm.
We saw how versatile it is, describing everything from the harvest moon and diamonds to pregnancy glows and even intense careers.
And we uncovered that surprising connection to Victorian poetry via a certain TV vampire, showing how context adds layers of meaning.
We've really seen how hunting down that precise word, one with history and specific connotations, can seriously level up your descriptions.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over. We talked a lot about physical things being effulgent, light, jewels, complexions, but those examples about careers, or Drusilla sensing something effulgent in William, they hint at something more abstract, don't they?
Yeah, like an inner radiance. So think about this. What does it really mean for a person, or maybe an idea, or even just an action, to have an effulgent presence? Not just a physical shine, but that kind of radiant splendor in their spirit, their work, their impact.
What, in your own world, when you really look closely, shines forth with that kind of dazzling, inspiring, truly effulgent brilliance?
Something to watch for.